What is domestic battery in Indiana? In Indiana, domestic battery is a crime that's separate and distinct from any other crime, including just plain old-fashioned battery. Essentially, domestic battery is the knowing or intentional touching, including by bodily fluids, of a family member or household member in a rude, insolent, or angry manner. So there's a couple of big things in there. It's typically against a family member or household member. So what does that mean? Well, that's super easy. Indiana code defines that as basically a spouse or a former spouse, if you ever dated that person or are currently dating that person, if you're engaged in a sexual relationship with that person, is or was engaged in a sexual relationship with another person, related by blood or adoption to the other person, related by marriage, had a previously established legal relationship, if you're a guardian, a ward, custodian, foster parent, or any kind of combination of that, or even if it's something not perfect, but it kind of fits that, or you have a child in common. Those are all family and household members. So that's kind of that. And then, touching, that's battery in Indiana. With fluids, spitting, sweat. They even talked about, I'm smiling because talk about breast milk. All sorts of things can be bodily fluids in Indiana. So the bottom line is you hit a family or household member. Again, that could be domestic battery if it's rude, insolent, or angry. Now, domestic battery always starts off as a misdemeanor, maximum time in jail 1 year, maximum fine $5,000. But it's super easy to get it to a level 6 felony. Level 6 felony punishable by 2.5 years in jail and a $10,000 fine. And a way domestic violence turns into a felony is if the person who commits the domestic battery has a prior unrelated conviction for domestic battery. Number 2, the person commits domestic battery and they're at least 18 years old, and there's a person under the age of 16 or age 16 who could see or hear the domestic battery. The third way is if the domestic battery results in moderate bodily injury. Moderate bodily injury is a more recent legal concoction here in Indiana, but essentially moderate bodily injury means an impairment of physical condition that includes substantial pain. There's not many cases on moderate bodily injury, but the few that are there is, a busted lip that required stitches. It's not serious bodily injury, we'll talk about in a second. And it's more than just, ouch. It's a little bit more substantial than that. They talked about a small fracture in the nose, moderate bodily injury. The fourth way is the complaining witness, what we call victim in the biz, but we call them complaining witness, is less than 14, and the person who committed the domestic battery is at least 18 years of age. It can also be level 6 felony if the victim is an endangered adult. An endangered adult is defined by statute, who would have thought? And essentially, the person is incapable of reason because of mental illness, intellectual disability, dementia, habitual drunkenness, excessive use of drugs, or other physical or mental incapacity. So basically, it's someone that can't take care of themselves. They're mentally, intellectually disabled. There's a pretty exhaustive list here on Indiana Code 12-1032, which is where they pull that definition from. The sixth way is if the complaining witness has a physical or mental disability and the person who committed domestic battery against them is a caretaker. And it's interesting, they even put in the statute voluntarily as a caretaker or de facto caretaker. So, level 6 felony is very serious. Now, domestic battery can also be a level 5 felony. And, if a person commits domestic battery that results in serious bodily injury to a family or household member, that's level 5. Serious bodily injury is defined by serious permanent disfigurement, unconsciousness, extreme pain, permanent or protracted loss of impairment of a bodily function or organ, loss of a fetus. It's, I feel like moderate bodily injury is kind of hard to spot sometimes, but I feel like serious bodily injury, well, that's kind of there. It's pretty easy to spot. If the offense is committed with a deadly weapon is literally anything. It's actually easier to talk about what a deadly weapon is not. Everything can be a deadly weapon. If it can be used to kill someone, it's a deadly weapon. The only thing that's statutorily not defined as a deadly weapon is a taser, electric stun gun, chemical design temporarily incapacitate. We're thinking like mace, something like that, or another device designed to temporarily incapacitate a person. Those are the only things that are kind of excluded from being a deadly weapon. brick, deadly weapon. We've had cases charged with a weed whacker, deadly weapon. So it's pretty broad. If the complaining witness is pregnant and a person commits domestic battery against them, that's a level 5 felony. If a person commits domestic battery against someone they've previously been convicted of committing domestic battery against, that's also level 5 felony. Also, if there's bodily injury to a victim less than 14 years old, bodily injury is super easy to get. Basically, if someone says, ouch, that's bodily injury. It's very, very low bar. If there's bodily injury to a mentally or physically disabled adult done by someone who is caring for that person, or if the victim is a endangered adult, and again, resulting in bodily injury. Domestic violence charges can actually get higher than level 5s, but it's not as common because there's other statutes that are more readily charged. If, God forbid, someone is seriously hurt or dies as a result of domestic violence, there's other charges that the prosecutors charge. So that's like a really brief overview of domestic battery. If you have any questions, give us a call, 317-632-3642. Domestic battery is unfortunately one of the most common charges in the state of Indiana, along with DUI and some other ones. And, in our experience, we've seen these charged when maybe they shouldn't have been charged, or maybe there is some bias of the person reporting the crime. There's no doubt that domestic battery actually occurs all the time, but we've seen this as something that's been abused in the past. And if you would like to talk about that, give us a call, 317-632-3642. Remember, always plead the fifth.